Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Tom Christiano. Well, tonight is a very special one. It's our 19th anniversary show, and we have a very illustrious panel with us tonight. We have the town manager and the chairman of all the major committees in town. I shouldn't say all, but most of the major committees in town. I don't want anybody to get upset with me for excluding them, but so we have a wonderful group to talk primarily about Chelmsford issues tonight, and also to reminisce about the last 19 years and how much fun we've had. On my right, we have Paul Cohen. How are you, Paul?
Great, Tom. Great to be here.
Thanks. This is your 8th anniversary show that you've been, 8 years in a row you've been. And thank you for coming every year. And you've never been sick, same as me. We've always made it.
Right.
And it's your 17th time on the show, which is wonderful.
But only my second under the Tom Christiano show. The first
Right,
15
yeah.
were under
Yes,
politically
yeah.
incorrect.
Yes. And I'll explain why we have the little name change because, in fact, the next show I'm doing 2 weeks from now is I'm going to have 6 artists again. It's called the Contemporary Artist Special. I had a small business show recently. I had an animal companion special. So it's not just politics anymore, you know. So that's why we changed the name to get the politics out of it, the word politics. So thanks for being here, Paul. How many years has it been now you've been our town manager?
This is my 8th year as town manager.
8 years. So.
Yes.
Every year, right from the beginning, you came on the show, and our which I really appreciate. And so thanks a lot for being here, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
And we also have Mike Rigney with us tonight. How are you, Mike?
Good.
Mike is the chairman of the Chelmsford School Committee for the 2nd year in a row, right, Mike?
That is correct. I am.
And how many years have you been on the school committee
I'm
now?
beginning my 2nd full term.
You're beginning?
Three whole years. And
Nice. So we just re-elected you recently, I guess.
yes, yes.
So I guess I put the black mark next to your name and forgot all about it.
Enough people did.
I did, yeah. I did. So how do you like being chairman? You must like it because or do they just want you to chair all the time because you're doing such a great job?
Well, I like to think it's because I let everybody else talk.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think it's just something that we do to make things run smoothly. Not that other people couldn't do it, but.
Wonderful. Well, and it's your 3rd one of these anniversary shows in a row because 3 years ago you came on when you were the vice chair and the chairperson couldn't make it.
That's right.
So that was great.
It's
so,
my streak.
Yeah. And you're also a town meeting rep, is that correct, Mike? Or no?
I am still a town meeting rep, yes.
Wonderful. Precinct
6. We've recently moved to Precinct 1, so I'll be stepping down as a Precinct 6 rep
that's right.
once we sell that house.
You're moving over to Bill Ricker Road, right?
That's right, right across from All Saints.
And did you say you have moved in yet, or you're going to?
We're in the middle of the move.
Oh, in the middle? Wow,
we're into the new house, but not out of the old one yet.
I see. Wow, well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Jeez. Thanks for being here,
Yep.
Mike.
Thanks for having me.
And we have Ed Roux back with us again. How are you, Ed?
Excellent. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. And actually, this is Mike's 4th time and your 4th time in the show. And so Ed is the chairman of the planning board this year.
Correct. This year, yes.
How many years have you been on the planning board?
This
Ed?
is my 6th year now.
Your 6th year? Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you're going to run again next year?
I started out with a 1-year term, so I don't run for another year.
Another year. Wonderful.
Yeah, so it'll be, I've got a reprieve for 1 more year.
Well, congratulations on being
Thank
the
you.
chairman this year.
Thank you.
And you're also a town meeting representative,
Exactly.
also
We just
Precinct
got
6?
exactly. We just got done that last night, which was great.
Yes, yeah, we'll talk a lot about the town meeting on the show.
Right.
Any other committees that you're on, Ed, that you want to mention?
Zoning bylaw review right now. I'm still, I'm the secretary of that. I get to do all the notes.
Oh, geez, is that okay for you, or do you mind it?
No, that's great.
Oh,
It's
good,
great.
good,
I have
good.
the time to do it.
Good.
I'm semi-retired.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, you're a realtor, right?
Still a realtor, yeah, but semi-retired.
Nice. That's great, Ed. Well, thanks for being here, Ed.
Thank you.
And we also have my good friend Sheila Pichette with us tonight.
Hello, Tom.
Hi. Sheila, you know it's your 15th time on the show,
Unbelievable.
which is fantastic.
It's great. Time
So it's
flies.
like every 8 I have to add a new row on the Excel spreadsheet. So you're like in the middle of the 3rd row. So.
Okay, that sounds good.
Oh, no, yeah. So, yeah. No, I'm sorry. You're in the end of the 2nd row. Every 8.
Just as long as I'm there.
Yeah, you're there. Yes. And because you had been on the school committee for 6 years, right?
That's
So
right.
you came on many times as a member of the school committee. Now you're the chairwoman of the finance committee in town.
That's true.
And how's that working out, Sheila?
It's very challenging, but I find it rewarding and always complex and perplexing. But it's a great team that I work with, and
Oh, good.
they're just, superlative. They're very good at what they do.
Do you have any
So-
openings now, or is all the slots filled at the moment?
Well, we'll
I'm
see after
finding-
June.
Okay.
And,
That's when that's when the new appointments are made
That's right.
by
yes.
the town moderator, right?
That's correct.
So we'll talk a little about the new town moderator on the show pretty
Mm-hmm.
soon.
Yep, John.
So you're also town meeting representative precinct 4, right,
I
Sheila?
am, yes.
Yeah.
It's a great precinct
Yes, wonderful.
over there in East.
Over by Mill Road,
Yes,
right?
yeah, that's
We-
right.
In fact, that's another topic
Mm.
we could maybe talk about later is proposed 40B on Mill Road.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Any other committees that you're on currently, Sheila?
No, I'm busy enough with everything else in life.
Yeah,
which
you're
is
working,
fine.
what, in Woburn or something?
In
So-
Melrose
Melrose,
Wakefield
oh.
Hospital for Hallmark Health.
Oh, at the hospital,
Yes.
wonderful.
Yeah, I work for the president and CEO there of Hallmark Health.
The president and CEO, that's fantastic.
It is. It's a great job.
That's
Always working with
wonderful.
people, and never know what's going to come at you next.
That's fantastic, Sheila.
It's good. Very good.
Well, I'm so glad you took time out of your busy schedule, all of you, to be here today.
Oh, this is fun.
Because I know you had to maybe leave work a little bit early today to get here.
That's all right.
So-
It's a great time to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Sheila. And we have my good friend Pat Wojtas with us today. How are you, Pat?
I'm doing okay.
You know, it's your 22nd time on the show, Pat.
Okay, if you say so.
Yeah, because I guess, well, you've been a longtime town meeting representative, a longtime selectman, and now you're the chairperson of the Board of Selectmen
I
here in
am.
town.
Yep.
It's been a little over a month now you've been a chair. Oh, I guess it was early April, right? So
Right, April 2nd.
about,
yeah.
about a month and a fourth.
A little over a month.
Yeah, a little over a month. How do you like it so far,
I
being
like
the
it.
chairperson?
I like it, it's good.
Good. Yeah, I think it's nice. I thought you did a good job at town meeting, and all of you did announcing things. Mike and Sheila, and of course Paul did a lot of announcing at town meeting. Oh, and even Ed did too. Comes up and
We
talks
got
about
into
the
it last
planning
night.
board positions on various issues. So you like it, okay,
Oh,
Pat?
yeah, I do.
Good,
Uh-huh.
good. And you've also been a longtime town meeting representative.
Yes,
right?
Precinct
Precinct
5.
5. And any other committees that you're on, Pat?
Yeah, I'm on a few. I'm on the civic committee. I'm on the,
that's
as you
right.
know, the Military Community Covenant.
Yes.
Uh,
How's
which-
that going?
It's going well. I mean, we're not as active as we were a few years ago because we don't have as many deployed soldiers as we did several years ago. But we're still staying
that's
busy.
right.
You know, we recently had the Purple Heart designation event.
Yes. Yes.
Which was great, and we
Wonderful.
had half a dozen or so local residents who have received Purple Hearts in attendance. So
That was great.
it was really good to see them and recognize them and thank them for their service because
Wonderful.
can't do that too much.
Yes, that's for sure. Especially if they ever go into these war zones, when Iraq, Afghanistan.
Right, to get a Purple Heart, you have to be in a war
Oh,
zone. You have to be
yes.
in a combat environment.
Yes, so
So,
they all
yeah.
deserve a lot of credit there.
They do.
And some of them probably went back to the Vietnam War, right? Or the Purple Hearts, or were they all more recent?
No, the
Oh,
most
so-
recent was one that actually was in Desert Storm. He was that was the most recent one. We had a couple from Vietnam era,
Yeah.
and then a couple from World War II.
I see. Nice, nice.
So-
Was Walter Headland there?
Yes,
Oh, wonderful.
he was.
Great. I haven't seen him in a little while. He's doing well.
He's doing okay. Yeah.
Good, good.
Yeah, he's had a few medical issues. I mean, he's
Yeah.
he's not as young as he used to be, as
Yes.
none of us are, but he's doing very well.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, thanks for being here, Pat.
Well, thanks for
A
having me.
big show, and so as I mentioned before, it's our 19th anniversary show, and we have cake. And after the show, you're welcome to come to the studio if you're around now and have a piece of red velvet cake. And but I thought we'd begin the show with a little reflection on the first show. We have a photograph from April 12th, 1995, which was the first show. If Pete's showing it now. And a couple of things I'd like to say about the show is, well, one, who the panelists were. We had 3 men who were either current selectmen or they were going to be selectmen. Jack Emerson at that time in 1995 was a current selectman. He's on the right-hand side of the picture there. And on the left, far left, is Bill Logan. He was a selectman after we taped this show. He ran and became a selectman. Then he moved out of Chelmsford. Second on the left is Mike McCall, and as all of you know, Mike McCall, who stood in as one of our town moderator on the second night of town meeting this year. So he was a selectman for quite a number of years here in Chelmsford, and he's very active with the Republican Town Committee. And then second from the right is Barbara Ward. She was a school committee member back at that time, and she's still here in Chelmsford. And so three of us are still here in Chelmsford: Barbara, Mike McCall, and myself there in the center. So anyway, that was April 12th, 1995, and the way we started taping the shows, believe it or not, that was at Chelmsford High School back then. So you could see the sets are different, the chairs are different, but so now we're at Parker School. That's where we tape these shows, and I think everybody at the Chelmsford Town Meeting has done a great job setting up the studio. Our director, Pete Padula, does a wonderful job, along with the director of Chelmsford Town Meeting, who might be retiring this year, Matt Scott. He was the director of our first show 19 years ago. And also, Vilu Tari has directed many of our shows, and he's done a wonderful job over the years, and he's still helping out quite a bit here in the studio. So anyway, that's a little bit of background. We'll talk more about some of these older shows later on in the show. I brought a couple of photos from our anniversary shows. But first I thought we'd talk with a little bit of reflections about town meeting. Maybe I'll go and ask each of you first, and then we'll open it up for any general comments. Just generally, what'd you think of the 3 nights we had for the spring town meeting, Paul? We just finished it last night. I'm taping this show. We're taping it on May 6th, 2014. So what'd you think, Paul?
It was a very busy town meeting. I think obviously when people look back at this town meeting, the most noteworthy will be the sewer grinder pump article, which took a whole session in and of itself. And people were sort of wondering, had there ever been a town meeting session devoted to one article before? And so far, no one's been able to name that incident.
No, I don't think so.
So I think that's probably the one that takes, and I think that was such a struggle, as obviously indicated by the time. And I think part of it was I think everybody wanted to assist the people with the grinder pumps. It just became a question of what were we getting into and at what cost. And unfortunately, no one knows, and we still don't know the answer to that, because it basically involves these 539 grinder pumps that are on private property of the residential homeowners, and we really don't have a clear understanding of what condition they're in.
Yes.
So that's why the big debate was what is going to be the initial cost in terms of the inspections and work to bring them to a standard that everyone's comfortable with.
Yeah.
And that was a real struggle, and obviously it then spilled over into the last session in terms of what's that going to mean for the sewer rate. So, but I think if you look at that, it was a very healthy debate. I think when you look back, it was a real challenge for Mike McCall, who was the guest moderator for that. But I don't think anybody could complain about how the town meeting process unfolded.
Yeah.
Everybody had their chance to speak. There were, I think people clearly understood what they were voting on.
Yeah.
So I think from a process standpoint, it worked really well in terms of how it functioned. And again, that was challenging with an interim moderator and also with a new moderator at the other 2 sessions as well.
Yes.
So I think it went well. I think the last night was more customary. The last session was more customary in terms of, we went through a lot of articles, many of which are familiar in terms of community preservation and so forth. And also I think it's going to be very fulfilling, Ed, in terms of the planning board and how the master plan document that's now 4 years old continues to, in the efforts, as you said, being on the bylaw review committee and such, that it continues to be a usable document, and it continues to unfold into the vision that the community worked on so diligently. So I think that was very important. And certainly the first night we had a big discussion regarding the budget and the Shobatech and so forth. So I think overall, I think people felt very well in terms of the process and procedure. And obviously, there are very difficult issues, and obviously you could see that reflected in the votes. And also the good thing is the voting system worked flawlessly as well.
I was just going to mention that, but I think it's wonderful that we have that electronic voting.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I even printed out how the voting went on that grinder pump, Article 25, just to know and reflect on the people who voted yes, the people who voted no, and the people who didn't vote or weren't there. The vote was 74 yes in favor of the grinder pump article, 63 no's. And so I think having it designated, so you have to kind of stand behind your vote and be proud of it. So I think it worked wonderful. In fact, I don't think there was any flaws this time.
No.
Some previous town meetings, sometimes it wasn't working for a while, and our technical director, what's his name, the guy in charge?
Ted
of
Luder.
Ted?
Yep, Ted.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it worked flawlessly for all 3 nights, which was great. And I love that system. It's fantastic.
And it keeps getting adopted in more and more communities.
I was just
as
gonna
we're
say,
seeing it. We were at the forefront. We were the first
Forefront,
community that adopted it.
Wow.
Wayland was the first one who tried it out at an open town meeting. We were the first community that adopted it. And at this point now, there's well over a dozen, probably heading towards 20 communities that
Good.
are adopting or have adopted electronic voting. Obviously, our neighbors in Billerica have done it,
Wonderful,
and
yeah.
it goes across the state. So I think it's really becoming now state-of-the-art technology in terms of its application
Which is
at
fantastic.
town meeting.
If they have representative town meeting as we do, I think
Particularly,
it's a wonderful thing
Yeah.
to do. You don't happen to know how many towns or in
We-
the state have representative, do you?
There's 351 cities and towns. I think we've seen some statistics. I think it's less than 50 that have
Really?
representative
Less
town
than
meeting.
50? Oh, the
Yeah,
others
'cause
are
you've got-
kind of small.
Right, exactly.
Very small.
Right.
And like we had many
Right,
years with open
right.
town meeting. I've attended many of those when I first came.
Well,
We
even
had
some bigger towns, like Westford is, I would consider that a fairly
pretty
large
good
town.
size. Yeah, they
and
could
they're
move
still-
if they
They're
wanted
They're
to.
still open.
Tewksbury
Drake
Tewksbury
it.
last night. I think we had more people at our representative town meeting than Tewksbury had at their town meeting last evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you saw the news today, yeah.
But I was going through Tewksbury the other
Yeah.
day because I went to a fundraiser and I saw a big sign. I'm going on town meeting such and such a date start 8 p.m. I'm saying, geez, starting so late. I think that was. I'm sure that's what it said because I was shocked. Geez, I want to start at 7 and there they are starting at 8. My God. But I think the representatives want. I hope maybe Westford might want to think about adopting it. I don't know. In fact, they have a big election today,
Today.
don't they,
Today's
for
the
the
big election,
selectmen?
yeah.
I wonder how things are going.
I heard that it wasn't a good turnout,
I said,
No.
yeah.
which is kind of surprising because
Right.
they do have a couple of contested races.
But it follows a very low turnout in Drake at last night. Because you remember when we had our vote, people were bemoaning the fact of the low turnout. But again, it shows we're not the exception. that
No.
There's been low turnout in Wilmington,
Yeah.
Everywhere, yeah.
Tewksbury,
Yeah.
Drake.
Yeah.
For the local elections, if it's a presidential,
yeah,
gets
everybody
much
comes out.
higher, right?
Oh yeah, we'll see him this fall.
But
at
we
the
didn't
governor's election.
didn't do too bad, given that there were only 2 really townwide contested races. We had about 16.5% turnout. Normally, we get between 18 and 20% for a local election. So it really wasn't too much lower than normal. And I think people should come out if they kind of know who the candidates are, know what they're voting on. I'm not one of those persons say I want 100% turnout. If people just closing their eyes and not knowing who they're voting for, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But
It doesn't make any sense
But
to me.
people should educate
Oh,
themselves
definitely.
too.
Oh,
They
yeah,
should.
that's the
Yeah.
thing. In fact, that's one of the reasons we have this little show is to try to help people be more informed on what's going on. In fact, Paul, you also have a show, don't you? You
Yes.
still have your
Yep,
roundtable show?
roundtable, yeah.
And how's that going?
It's going well. Yeah,
Good.
we did one. I brought in one show we did with Evan Belansky, talked about the zoning articles,
Yeah,
and we brought John Souza in, talked about the financial articles. So again, it's all in an effort to bring people aware of the town meeting. And again, one of the things we saw at this town meeting, and maybe it will increase in the future, is we saw non-reps speak and approach
Yes,
the microphone and
which is
either
good.
ask questions or appear in debate at town meeting. And that that seemed to be a little bit more than we normally would have. So hopefully people continue to get interested.
Which is great, yeah. I like it when the residents come up to the microphone and during the town meeting, and because they have every right to. They can't vote, of course, and that kind of thing. So, but thanks, Paul. And Mike, do you have any overall thoughts on the town meeting?
Overall, I think the big takeaway, and I echo Paul on this, is that the process went really well. Bill Ricca is talking about doing away with town meeting. There was just an article in the Sun the other day where some of the selectmen there and some of the other folks feel like it's not the right way to go, and they want to see, I think, a strong mayor form of government. But I think we're an example of how it can work really well. It was a good mix of both having the elected reps, but also individual citizens coming forward to share their thoughts on things. And the evenings went pretty smoothly.
Yes, it did. Thanks, Mike. And so you were called upon periodically to give your opinions. I noticed you gave it when you felt
yeah.
it was relevant to the school, right?
Yeah,
If
not my
you-
opinion, but the school committee's
School
opinion.
committees,
there.
yes, yeah. Yeah, it is. Well, thanks,
Yeah,
Mike.
thank you, Tom.
Ed, any thoughts about town meeting?
No, I was very
Yeah,
happy with the
overall.
way it went. I think the moderation on the 2 moderators was excellent. I think the moderation was excellent, and I think it ran smoothly. We got a lot of work done.
Yes, we did.
We got a lot of work done, and it's not exactly, I don't think it always comes out the way everybody wants it, but it gets done.
Yes, it does. Yeah, thanks, Ed. Sheila, your thoughts? And you were called upon many times as a chairperson of the Finance Committee to give your opinion on just about most of the articles, but not all related to finance. So if it wasn't, you would not, you would say
That's right.
no.
You know, most of the zoning articles we didn't have a recommendation on.
Yeah.
But I think it was very important that when we did have a disparity in the vote, that the people spoke and gave their opinions on what their opinion and their point of view was. And that's, that's what makes a committee. But I was thinking through the whole town meeting that this is such a great democratic form of government. I mean, it really, I was thinking of the Boy Scouts. Are there any, in the back there watching or on television? Because it's really a true democracy at these town meetings. And you can get up, anybody can get up, and they can speak, certainly in debate, and possibly in question and answer. And it just was really very good. One thing that I took away from that, I was very pleased that the awareness in the community is much stronger now of the OPEB liabilities that we have in the future. And I think that that will be addressed, much tighter in the budget next year than it was this year, and thanks to Paul bringing it forward so very nicely. And then the grinder pump, it's just been, that issue has been here for so many years, and now people have relief, other people just don't know what's happening, but at least it's a step forward, and we're looking at the whole community and their needs, and it's extremely difficult to do that. But I think with Paul and his team and all of the boards, I think they look very closely at what the needs are and what the large decisions need to be at maybe the next town meeting.
Yes.
And I thought Dr. Tiano did an excellent job at that. He
Yes.
clearly took a segment of time and said, look, this is where the school committee is going in the next few years, and with the discussion on the full-day kindergarten.
Yes.
And I think that was very informative.
Yes,
Very
yeah.
helpful.
And he did a nice job too,
Yeah,
as did you,
exactly.
Paul, in your presentations. And,
Yeah.
because I've been 20 years now, I've been a rep and never missed a meeting, thank God. So, so I've heard a lot of our superintendents speak, and they've all been very well spoken. And Frank was one of the best in terms of speaking well and in a very friendly, collegial manner that was comfortable. I was very comfortable with him up there and believing, fully, of course, everything he was saying. Maybe later, if we have a chance, we'll talk about full-day kindergarten if we have some time.
And I think even Dr. Klimkowitz, I thought she gave an excellent presentation and comportion of herself at the town meeting. I mean, obviously she had a lot of questions about the roof project and the budget, but I think her professionalism came right through. I mean, she really did an excellent job.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think people appreciated her
Yeah.
presentation.
Yes, it was
Exactly.
nice to
Very
see her
much.
there.
Yes,
Better
yeah.
than previous years.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was one. Well, thanks, Sheila. Pat, your overall thoughts on the town meeting this year?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. I think it is great that we're still able to have a town meeting and have such good attendance. And I'm kind of surprised. Some people seem surprised when we don't have more unanimous votes. And I think it's good that we don't, because it shows that we do have diversity on town meeting, and it does indicate that people think about things and consider them. And kind of on that theme, when you vote, you have to vote yes or no, or you not at all. It's not like like there were a couple articles that I was conflicted on, quite frankly. But then when it comes down to pressing that button, you have to press 1 or 2,
Yes.
and you can't press 1.5 or
Right.
1.3.
Yeah.
So, and that's tough for people sometimes.
Oh,
it really
is.
is.
Yeah. Because why do you think the vote? I think there was like 32 people who didn't vote in that grinder pump Article 25. Like I said, we had 74 yes, 63 no. Now some people were clearly not there that night, but
Right.
somebody mentioned to me like somebody was there, but they
it
came in
is-
during
it
the
is
quorum,
hard.
but yet somehow they didn't vote during
Because
that
because maybe
article.
they really couldn't make up their mind
and
which they
couldn't
wanted.
even he pressed the abstain button.
Well, I mean, there was a couple times when I didn't press the abstain button and I didn't vote because it was
Oh.
it was a minor, like
a minor article.
something
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I didn't feel needed really my vote for
Yeah.
whatever reason. But
Yeah.
I mean, some people just
Some people
it's
didn't,
very
but some
difficult.
people were confused about that. My friends that were saying, "Well, geez, why are they town meeting rep and they don't vote or they're not there, whatever." But anyway,
How many blanks do you see on a ballot when you have the
Yeah.
town
Right.
election? You have
That's
people
true.
That's right.
go in and leave
And
them
those
out
are,
blank.
and those are the folks who bother to come out to vote.
Right,
And,
exactly.
I'll say this:
Yeah.
I was one of the people who didn't vote on that issue,
Okay,
and it's because I was out of town.
Oh, right.
And I
Yeah.
think
'Cause
while
you-
it's
you weren't there that
while
night,
it's
though.
while it's commendable to be there for a long for every night, that's really not what the charter requires.
Right,
And I am a committed town meeting rep.
Yeah.
I do my due diligence. I do my research, and I am not always there.
Yeah, which is totally understandable, Mike. I think reps can miss they can't miss more than 50%, right? In any one year, or they won't be a town meeting rep anymore.
Exactly.
So, but many of them professional, like Mike is a professional director or something over in, is it?
I'm a
Brandeis
lab
or
manager,
something?
yeah, at
Manager,
Brandeis,
and he has what? You have 4 children too, right? You
I
might
also have 4 children.
might have
There
family
have
commitments.
been times in the past where when both Deirdre and I were town meeting reps, one of us would miss a vote because we needed to get home and relieve the babysitter. Now that
Yeah.
happened more at the end of the nights than at the beginnings, but yeah,
Yes.
certainly there are other things that responsible people do that can conflict with their ability to vote.
Yes, yeah. Well, Paul summarized a little bit about the grinder pump article, but I thought we'd just leave it open if anybody else wants to have any comments about that, Article 25, which was moved up. And like I said, I've been a rep for 20 years, and I don't remember ever one night devoted to just one issue like this, but I think it was perfectly appropriate and a very good idea to move that article up when there were tons of residents concerned about the grinder pump there that night. And I think it's very respectful to them as individuals and as busy individuals who aren't town meeting reps to do the article when you know they're there, and rather than keeping waiting, as happened sometimes in the past when we just had an article later. So I was glad it was all done in one night. I voted yes on it. I was glad it passed. And I don't think we could ever know the cost fully right now because it hasn't been implemented yet. So there's people that wanted everything definitive ahead of time. I don't see how that was possible because it hasn't been done yet. So I don't know where they were coming from with that, but I respect their opinions. But
I think there's a lot of vagueness on that article. And what I'm hoping for is that, I voted no, I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
No,
And
good.
I'm not want to rehash it here, but I'm hoping that as the regulations are developed, it addresses some of the some of the unknown, it tightens it up a little bit.
yes, I imagine as time goes on, it will get tightened up. That's why I thought Glenn Thorne's amendment, I thought was fairly reasonable. Like, you know, maybe look at this for 5 years, see how it's going. And for example, God forbid, say it costs $2 million a year to do this, and a lot of seniors, whatever, had to move out of Chelmsford because they could no longer afford to live in the town. I mean, that's something we may want to revisit. But then again, I guess we could revisit it again anyway, right, Paul? Can we, if we
Sure.
wanted
Correct.
to?
Yeah.
Like anything in town, we could probably, so I guess that's good. So maybe that article wasn't needed. But I do think looking at 5 years of experience, financial and otherwise, I kind of like that. You know, when I make a decision, it's nice to be able to review it again. But as Paul said, we could do that anyway.
Yeah, the only concern I would have with a known sunset date would be, it's almost like if you had a warranty on your car and you were nearing the end of it, you'd say, why don't you come out and take a look at it in that
Yeah.
4th year to
Yeah,
make sure
yeah.
that it's okay, because I might not have it in a year.
Yes,
so
right,
that could
right.
be, it could have led to a significantly
Yes.
high cost year. But other than
That's
that, no.
true.
The idea of sunsetting is not a bad idea
Yeah.
in general.
I wish the federal government would do it. Quite a
Right,
few.
oh, yeah.
I understand the tax code
Tax
is
code,
huge
right.
with so many regulations.
Right.
But any other general thoughts about the grinder pump issue?
Well, I mean, I think the committee did an amazing job in the time that they had to do it. The data that they collected was tremendous. There's always going to be extra data that possibly you don't have at the last minute. There's always something new that comes up usually. And, you know, we'll look at that, and I'm sure that the town will deal with those things. But we have to understand that we're trying to mend something that's been broken for a long time, and people in the town really need to be serviced the right way.
Yes.
And I think that this vote we'll look back in years to come and say that was the right thing to do.
Right.
Finance committee, when we looked at the numbers, we weren't sure. There was just so many questions
yeah.
at that moment that's the reason why we voted against it as a finance committee.
Yes.
But so far as the committee, they did like I said, a wonderful job. And I think that as we move forward, it's one step forward, and we'll just build on that. And with Paul's expertise in the sewer department and Gary Persichetti, you know, it'll be a success.
Yes. Well, speaking of the committee, some of you may have heard, and I know Paul is aware of this, that there were some figures that came out that I guess were out previously, but Mike V.
Vaznakis. Yeah.
Sent out an email on Thursday afternoon when we were voting on the grinder pump that night, and he had some figures there that were somewhat higher than what the figures that were presented earlier were. So some people in town are like, really, oh, why wasn't that presented Thursday night? So in fact, Selectman Janet Askenberg mentioned it, that there was a memo this afternoon. So therefore, all the town meeting reps knew there was something there. And in fact, Lori Myers might have even asked about it. I'm not sure. I think she did, maybe not. But does anybody know why that information wasn't brought up? Why didn't Mike or Gary Persichetti get up and talk about it? Or maybe they didn't want to confuse the issue?
No,
don't
I
know.
mean, let me make this clear, and I tried to, as Pat knows and others may have seen, with the series of emails that went out since that meeting. The bottom line is Mike and Gary testified before the Grinder Pump Committee on February 11th, and he presented similar information. It wasn't as complete as what he had on the day of the town meeting vote. And then Mike was brought before the Finance Committee when the Finance Committee considered the articles and addressed their concerns, as Sheila just noted, when they met on the 24th of April. And then Gary and I came back on the Monday night, the 28th of April, when the Finance Committee made its vote. And Mike and Gary were also in attendance at the Selectmen's meeting when the Selectmen considered the article. And so, so we tried to make, and we had them there at town meeting, as well. So we tried to make the resources and people available. My thought was when I saw the email, I thought the timing was inopportune because it didn't give anyone a chance to reasonably examine it and or respond to it. And so I immediately contacted the chair of the Sewer Grinder Pump Committee, Tom Gilroy,
right.
and I apologized. I said, Tom, this really is unfortunate because it's sort of a last-minute flurry of information that came from a town department. What troubled me about the memo was that it said DPW policies, and yet when I first received it, I received it at the same time as everybody else. I called Gary Persichetti, and I said, Gary, what's this about? And Gary says, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So I said, well, that's inappropriate. And then so Gary looked into it, talked to Mike. Mike then called me. He apologized to me. He said, Paul, I just was trying to get information out. And I said, Mike, I said, let me make this clear. I said, information is good, but sometimes it's not, it's not what you provide, it's how you do it. And I said, I don't think it was appropriate for you to send that out without the review or notification of your department head. And certainly I would have appreciated knowing about it. And also I said, but let me make it clear, Mike, I'm in no way trying to censor you or limit you or anywise constrain your comments. And as we said, we brought him there. He was even there at the last session of town meeting. So he had the opportunity. And and I think at least one occasion he and Gary went up to the microphone. And I was surprised that if he had any concerns that he didn't express them at that time, or that if Janet or others who had concerns and knew about the information could have requested that Mike speak to the issue. They did not. I didn't think that there was anything there that was so newsworthy and noteworthy that hadn't already been part of the deliberations. I basically envisioned it very similar to as if, and we've seen this at town meetings, people hand out informational flyers about their perspective on an article as you come into the meeting. Very simple, like the Sewer Fairness Alliance could have done that type of thing. So I didn't think it was a withholding of information or otherwise an attempt to prevent access to the town meeting reps. And I think that was sort of, was very unfortunate that it was sort of construed that way, generally by people who basically didn't support the passage of the article. Is how I saw it, and I think that was just it was just unfortunate because if it was a big conspiracy, well then I sort of didn't go about it the right way because like I said, we made Mike available to all boards and to town meeting, and he was free as a town resident. And as he noted the other night, he's also a town resident, so he could have at any opportunity had he felt comfortable to go and speak to it, and he was in no way inhibited or prevented from expressing his views. So.
Did he say why afterwards, Paul, why he didn't get up and express anything? He just didn't even mention it.
But I know since then I did hear from Gary that he felt terrible about all the uproar that his action had caused.
Because I don't know if he could understand what the town meeting reps, like Tom Newcomb, he was very upset about it. And I saw the emails and everything, so I'm fully aware of it. That's saying, geez, there's this information out there. It's from a head of like the sewer department at DPW. Why couldn't he give that full information at town meeting? I'm sure you could understand that, Paul, right?
Well, but I don't agree. For example, if we were going to choose the location for the fire station, and the fire chief supported putting the fire station next to the town offices, but yet the fire prevention deputy who's involved with fighting fires and investigations felt that it was on Wilson Street was a better location, then is that withholding information or that person, as I said, can express his opinions and so forth. So I just, especially where Tom, in this case, Gary and Mike had the opportunity and testified to these different boards and committees, and I said they had the opportunity. The other thing, I don't see that it was anything different, And I
But
guess,
the
well,
figures
where would it stop, though? I mean, if there's a question about police funding, and if the police detective has a different opinion, do we bring the detective to the town meeting about how much we should be funding the police budget? You know, I
Yeah.
guess the question becomes, that's a very slippery slope in terms of, but I just felt that it was unfair to characterize it as a withholding of information. And quite frankly, Tom, I think many people use it as another way to attack me for their own agenda. And we know out there, let's not kid ourselves. There are some people who use any opportunity to criticize me as town manager because that's apparently some of their agenda.
Yeah,
And
that-
I think that's what some of this is
that,
about.
Paul. I understand. It's very difficult. I know it's very difficult in your position to get criticized sometimes, no matter what you do.
That's the nature of the position.
And sometimes, in the position, it's tough. And so anyway, it was in the Lowell Sun today too. A little mention of a little article summarizing our town meeting. Tom Newcomb was quoted in there and things. But I just hope. So hopefully that will explain it to people if they have any questions about it.
You know, can I jump in
yeah.
just for a second? One thing, part of the perception may have been due to the fact that only a short list of people received it. Has there been any discussion of giving town meeting reps their own email address that would be publicly available, much the way that the members of the boards have an email address that's separate from their personal addresses? If every town meeting rep had a town of Chelmsford email address, it might be easier for somebody like Mike, who has a perfect right as a citizen of Chelmsford to express himself, to contact everyone rather than only a few folks.
We have that, and maybe Pat wants to elaborate on that because the board has had sort of considered that idea of, because it came to us most recently with the Board of Appeals as well.
Well, and everybody does have the opportunity to get a town of Chelmsford email address. It's never been denied. But there are some people that just don't want to have an email address, and I respect that decision of them not to. They prefer to get their information some other way, either by telephone or by mail or whatever. So I really don't see that they should be required. Anybody should be required to have a town of Chelmsford email address.
I didn't know it was available.
And anybody that wants their email address public, it is for all the town meeting reps. It is on the.
Well,
on the
I've
website.
provided
So-
one of my personal addresses there, but
Right.
I might change that over to a town address just because it helps organize the information and the discussions.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
And Steve, Mike Klosnakis, he could have sent it to a lot more people if he wanted to. I think the people that he sent it to was the Grinder Pump Committee, the Finance Committee, and the Board of Selectmen. I
No,
believe.
Finance
Wasn't the
Committee did
Finance
not
Oh, it
Committee.
receive
wasn't, okay,
Just
just the
Board of
Grinder.
And then a few other,
think
like
it was the
Richard
Grinder
Day got
Committee.
one. There were a few other people. I don't know how he
Okay.
chose who to send it to.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But what's his name? Tom Gilroy was quite upset about it, which you mentioned earlier.
Right.
It was really, but I guess he's not.
But I think that's understandable. I mean, if you look at that committee, they spent every Tuesday night, from January till March,
Tom was-
holding
yeah,
public hearings,
they did.
publicizing, getting the meetings televised and so forth. And I think it would have to be disheartening to go through that effort and then just sort of have something like this happen at the last minute. And also a lot of the questions that were raised at town meeting, I'm sure Tom was probably thinking, geez, I wish we had heard from some of these people
Earlier.
in the last few months so that we could have incorporated that information and answered their concerns. Because I think that's probably I believe. I mean, I've not sat down and talked with Tom, but I think that's sort of the frustration because those people worked incredibly hard
They did.
on to get this information.
Yes, in a tight schedule, right? Because it was just from the fall town meeting to the spring town meeting. I remember when we voted on that in the fall, Peggy Dunn and others were thinking, why don't we give them a full year to come up with these recommendations? And so it was very truncated, and they fit it all in and worked very hard on it.
But
I
I'm sure
agree.
it's kind of like Ed Roux. I mean, Ed has the bylaw review committee. They work and have posted meetings and everything else,
Yeah.
and then they get to town meeting, and you heard the discussion the other night, the amendments on the fly, right? I mean,
Right, and as the town attorney said, that's not the best
Right.
idea,
Yeah.
because this stuff's been kicked around.
Yes.
On the Grinder, I think some of the people who voted no from talking to them is the responsibility of the owners. They've gone from having to pay everything themselves to now the town's going to pay everything, and it's kind of like maybe they should have some responsibility for some piece of this. Because when I ran a factory, we had a waste treatment plant, and we had pumps like this, and I can tell you intimately how they break down, unfortunately. And it's going to be all 539 are going to be replaced on a regular schedule, and depending on what they put down the drain. And that's what a lot of questions of a bunch of the people who voted no was, what's the responsibility of the people with grinder pumps?
Yes. Well, we do
That's-
know in the article they can't put
Certain
anything
items.
down there that they're not supposed to, right?
That-
Right,
no,
it's in the article, but-
Policing is,
exactly-
policing's
oh,
another,
I agree, I understand.
It's one
I
thing to
understand.
know, it's another
yeah.
to prove.
Oh, I
the
understand.
policing's another thing.
I understand fully, Paul,
You know,
and I,
playing FBI.
but all I'm
on-
saying, it's in there that, you
Yep.
know, what they're supposed to, what they're not supposed to put down there, into the grinder pump.
Right.
But, yeah, thank you. Well, so what about the new town moderator? How do you think John Curlin did? This was his first, he had 2 nights as a town moderator. How did you think he did?
I thought I'd give him a solid B.
Solid B?
A solid B. I wouldn't quite give him an A yet. I think he has a little bit to work on to get to an A, but I'd give him a solid B. I was pleased.
Good, good,
I
thanks.
think the body supported him, and I think
Yeah.
that they wanted him up there, and there were certain little things that they just really, you know, let him go, and he did a fine job. I mean, he was very articulate, and my goodness, I don't know how you get up there and do that anyway. So I think he did a great job.
Yeah, I think John did a nice job. I think he was assisted with Marcom's work. I think that was also something that made a difference.
Yes.
And I think it's good that the town meeting reps have some input into the way town meeting is run. I think that helps everybody.
Yes.
Not just the reps, not just the moderator, but to work together in a group like that. And I hope that's something that will continue.
And the Marcom was like the Town Moderators Advisory Committee came up with a number of recommendations, many of which have been already implemented. For example, we went to 1 microphone. I think that worked out okay. I had no problems with it too, but 1 seemed to work out fine, and more people are used to it and they're less confused. So for that reason alone,
Well,
I
again,
guess
that's
it's fine.
you let them have some input into it, and yeah,
Yeah.
then I think things
And
run
they
better.
accept it, yeah.
And I think Dick DeFreitas deserves some credit for
Yeah.
forming that body, and
Yeah.
and John deserves some credit as well for listening to it.
Yes, yes.
I think the new moderator did an excellent job. I go maybe an A minus, B plus, maybe an A minus.
right.
But I think everybody, town meeting reps, everybody has learned from the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
From as we've gone through a number of moderators, I think we're all maturing
Yeah.
as to how the meeting should run and understanding it. And I agree. There was some instances where, for instance, last night, I forgot to introduce myself, but nobody, when I went to speak, but it was one of those things that just kind of
Yeah.
slid by.
Yep.
And everybody was kind.
Yes.
And so with the moderator, maybe a few things weren't perfect, but they were pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty darn good meeting.
It
Yeah.
was.
And I think people are comfortable.
Yes.
It was a very
Paul?
quiet meeting,
Yeah.
as opposed
Right.
to some others.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
there wasn't
I,
that chatter. Usually there's a lot of chatter.
usually a lot of chatter, and
there
I know,
wasn't that, yeah.
I don't know, what do you think is causing that, that we're all paying attention so much, myself included?
Well, that's a good
That-
thing.
The group-
Yeah, it's a good thing, yeah, I mean, it was, I guess everything was so, it was serious articles, so many that,
Right.
I mean, I just felt they were all so important, really,
Well,
I
the other
didn't do
thing,
much talking during the night.
the other thing too is, I think, not to cut you off, but the other thing that's important is the clickers. Your vote, people know what you're voting for. It's not holding up a little
Yeah,
orange sticker
right.
anymore. It's, if I want to know who voted this year, last year, it's just get on the computer, and so you're accountable for your vote. I
Yes.
guess accountability.
Yeah, so maybe that causes them to pay attention more because they know their vote is going to be known to everybody, so they better know what they're voting on and why.
Right,
And,
exactly, so they can
and-
explain themselves.
Yes, yeah. Well, before we continue with the show, Pete, could I show up some of these photos here before we move on? I see our time is zipping by, but I see you, Zora got a nice one shot here. Zora's our center camera person. Thank you, Zora, for being here every Tuesday, and George and Larry. Anyway, this is one of our anniversary shows from 2001. You could see on the left-hand side, there's a chairperson of the Board of Selectmen, Tom Moran. I think next to him is our former town manager, Bernie Lynch. Next to him in the center is a school committee chair, Judy Millette at that time. Next to Judy is Claire Janot, who is still a town meeting representative and a member of the finance committee right now. She was on this show because she was a chairperson of the finance committee back then. And on the right-hand side is Charlie Wojtas, Pat's brother there. And Charlie was a chairperson of the planning board at that time. And there's little old me in a tuxedo in the center there. As you could see in the top there, the show was called Politically Incorrectable with Tom Christiano. But as I mentioned earlier, we no longer use the political name in the title because we're no longer just a political show. We have so many other. And Pete, I'll just show this other one at the same time if you don't mind. This is one, Paul Cohen was our town manager. I believe it was 2011, and we have Paul Cohen there on the left. We have Sue Carter, who is the chair of the planning board. We have myself in the center. And second from the right is Janet Askenberg, who was the chairwoman of the school committee at that time. And on the right-hand side is George Dixon, who was the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. This is in 2011. So every year I post, I make an 8x10 enlargement of this illustrious group that we have for our anniversary shows. I always ask the town manager and the chairpersons of the various committees in town, and then I make it an 8x10, and then I post it up on my wall. I call it the Wall of Fame. Some other people may want to call it something else. I don't know, Wall of Infamy or something. I don't know, but I don't call it that. So it looks great. Mike McCall, in fact, he had to pick something up at my house recently. So I finally got to show him because he was a chairman of the Board of Selectmen a while ago. I said, Mike, there's your picture. So he thought it was nice, but I think it was about 2006 he was a chairman of the Board of Selectmen. So thank you, Pete, for getting those on there. I wonder if we could talk a little bit more about the budget since we have Paul here and Sheila. And I guess the big thing this year, Paul and Sheila, was we had a little bit of a deficit this year, and some people were kind of really concerned about that. You know, why we're voting on a deficit this year. Why couldn't we just vote with less going to OPEB, the pension liability fund, like $500,000, and then just come up with the other $500,000 in the fall? Why didn't we do that, Paul?
Well, we certainly could have.
Yeah.
And the discussion would have probably lasted about 4 minutes,
Yeah.
and no one would have paid much never mind to it.
Yeah.
But the objective was, and it was sort of similar to how the superintendent of schools sort of gave a presentation of where the school committee wanted to go in terms of full day kindergarten and so forth. It was clear to me going back a year ago, after the town for 2 years had voted to put $1 million towards OPEB in the fall at free cash, that the goal of the finance committee was that they would like the OPEB $1 million funded within the operating budget. And I think that was the initiative to put this into the spring budget, and then we'd see how much we could fund it, and then obviously to point out that, look, this is an ongoing liability of the town, and therefore when you are adopting a budget, you really are not funding your true ongoing costs of operations. I mean, so when you step back from it 1,000 feet, it really doesn't have any material difference because, as we explained to folks, the budget is whole when we submit it to the state at the end of, in November. It's not April, it's not October, and so whether we fund with cash in the fall or have a deficit in the spring, it really didn't have a material difference. But the bottom line is it really meant to illustrate their point. And the big point is that this is a non-sustainable cost that needs to be addressed particularly by reform at the legislative level at the State House, and also has to be seriously funded because even if there is reform, cities and towns have to step up and address that cost because it is a liability of the town, and it's not fair to pass that liability to those who come after us.
Yeah.
And much as we've inherited an unfunded pension liability that we're funding millions of dollars per year that could otherwise go to fund essential town services, it's not fair to burden future people with that cost. Yeah. And that's really what's the attempt here, and I think it's a question of fairness. It's not fair to lower taxes or reduce your costs today by sort of putting it on a credit card and giving it to people who come after us.
Yeah.
But then as well, Paul, you and John Souza made it perfectly clear to us that from maybe the sale of the bonds earlier in the year that you were going to have an overage toward the end of the year. You just didn't have it right now. And the receipts are coming in so well, like motor excise tax and other receipts, that they're very, very strong. And so most of us were very confident that the money would be there. I think part of this discrepancy in the opinions in the Finance Committee was that this had not been done before. And people just did not feel that it was the right way to go. Even though that they knew the funds would be there, it just couldn't get to the point that, because I think part of the problem was that the thought process was it was a slippery slope, we might do it again. Well, that's not the issue. But yet there was a discrepancy, and it was the fact that it wasn't right. A lot of people didn't feel that it was the thing to do. But yet, again, the awareness of OPEB is out there like it's never been before, and it's a reoccurring. It's going to be a constant. We need to do that.
Yeah.
And the receipts are so well, and our budget is being managed so well by administration that most of us didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Well, our time is zipping by. I don't know if you've all noticed that, but we don't have too much time. Paul, before we end the show, I wanted to quickly ask you about the cable TV going into high definition. I think that's one of your goals for the year, to try to get that. Because what I found when I've got a high definition television, I don't look at Channel 8 anymore, Paul. I'm just over the 800, 900 numbers.
Right.
And I think many other people, as they get high def, so they won't be watching our local TV much anymore. So is there any way we could get that?
Well, it has to be addressed in our license. We are coming up in 2016 as our renewal for Comcast, our town's cable television license with Comcast. We'll be beginning that process this fall, and probably 6 months from now.
Yeah.
And it's something that we will seek to negotiate in the new contract. And it sort of surprises us as to why they don't want to do it,
I know,
because you have so many. You have so many channels up on the high def tier that you're kind of wondering when they're just going to flip the system around and make the single digit the high def channels, and then make the other ones the high numbers.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Well, they took away our Channel 10.
Exactly,
and put that at 99.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
I know.
So
I had to go to 99 for your
Oh,
selectman meeting.
that's
Yeah.
a tough one, huh?
Yeah.
229.
But I do
instead of
find
the
it,
8.
though. I do look at it.
But you wonder when the whole industry will just flip over, because you can't buy a non-high definition television
No,
anymore, and the
right.
number of people and subscribers. You wonder at what point do they just invert their schedules,
Yeah.
and then just put no longer have these pressing 4 digits to get a high definition
Yes,
channel.
yeah.
That you would just make that so when you want channel 4, you hit 4 and you get the high def 4.
Yes, be nice.
And then if you don't have that, if you have an older television, well then you can go push the extra digits.
Right, yes.
And
yeah.
then all that,
Right.
because you're sort of wondering.
Oh,
if you were
maybe not.
marketing the product, that's how you would do it. I
Oh,
would
yeah,
think.
yeah. So you're going to work on that as best
So
you can,
yeah,
right?
we can't
Well,
control the schedule. We can't
Right.
control their channel tiers and so forth. But we
you're gonna
will
try to get-
request it in the new
Yeah, because
license. Yeah.
we can, just to do the best we can to try to get it. Because I think it would help us get more people looking at local TV. I do get all of my shows onto YouTube, as you may know. And one reason I do, I just think it's so more accessible for people throughout the world or the country or whatever. YouTube, they're just comfortable, I think, clicking on it, Because we do also get it on Chelmsford Telemedia very quickly after we tape the show, and that's on the internet as well. And I know now I could watch internet shows and YouTube right on my big 55-inch TV if I want to. Not that I watch my show at 55 inches. But I don't want to see myself that closely.
I'm not sure I need to see myself in high definition either, quite frankly. But I do think that having the local studio, the chelmsfordtv.org, it's a tremendous resource.
Yes.
It lets people time shift. If
Yes,
there's an awful lot of folks who have something to do at 7 o'clock at night, but they can catch up
Yes.
9 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night or the next day. With the meetings, with FinCom now,
Yes,
with the
the planning
Selectmen,
board and
even
planning
the planning
board.
board,
and even
Absolutely.
some of the other committees that we never, like a
Right.
CPC meeting a few
Yeah.
weeks ago was
Right.
televised. I
Which
mean,
is wonderful.
everything.
I think that's a
ZBA
great.
now is being televised.
It's
so-
a wonderful service, I think, right?
and
To-
I if we have to choose, I'd much rather have that
Yeah.
than
I'd rather have a
than
fourth
high def.
station, than
Yeah.
the high def.
Yeah, we don't want to give up that. That's very important.
And
You're
hopefully
right,
someone
yeah.
will step up and tape the Neshoba Tech School Committee meetings.
There you go.
Yes,
That's right.
yeah.
There
They
seems to be
really
a lot
do
of
need it.
interest in that.
Because I had the feeling Dr. Klimkowitz said if somebody wants to do it, they could come over and tape.
Well,
right?
they can't prevent you. Under the open meeting law,
Right.
you
Oh.
have a right to tape. You could walk
They-
in with your own camera as long as you don't
As long as
disturb
you
the
tell
meeting.
them, yeah.
And you tell them you're welcome to tape the meeting.
Oh, I didn't know
Oh, yeah.
that. And so I could tape any open
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah, as
that's
long as
public.
you tell them and you
Tell
don't
them.
disrupt the
Oh,
meeting,
good,
you can do
good.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because somebody was questioning it to me, like we can't do it, even though she said something. They were thinking we couldn't really tape it.
Sure
I'm
you
glad.
can.
So yeah, that'd be nice to get some of those, all those taped would be nice. Paul, quickly about another big thing coming up now is it's the fire station, the
Yes.
old fire station location. I know the Mike Maloney mentioned.
Maloney.
Pat Maloney. Oh
Yeah.
my God, Pat Maloney
That's okay.
mentioned the possibly a park there in the center. I'm not so sure about restrooms there.
I think he
but-
wanted to throw out
Just an
ideas to
idea,
get
yeah.
people talking and
yeah.
thinking about it. And over the past few meetings of the committee, they've sort of been throwing all those different ideas. One being the information center, one being public restrooms, one being a park. And I think he just sort of threw it all together to get people same sort of thing. Let's get people thinking and considering it, because the sad part is in 6 months when the fire department moves out of there, they're going to take the letters off the building. There aren't going to be any trucks parked in the front. The flag will be down.
Yes.
It's going to look like a very sad building, and I
Yes.
think that's why the effort is now. Let's not suffer through the winter. Looking at that, what would really be a blight in the center of the town. So I think his effort was to sort of draw people's attention and let's get them working over the summer.
Yes.
And perhaps bring something to fall town meeting in terms of whether it's demolition or what have you to the building, and then take some time. I mean,
Right.
you could think of a whole range of ideas. I mean, we've heard people talk about we don't have a Civil War monument. Well, maybe you could put. I'm not saying that, but you can just see all the different possibilities of ideas that. I thought that maybe that would have been a good location for the 9/11 memorial, but yet they're doing that over at the new fire station. So you could just see how if you brainstormed, that there'd be all different sorts of ideas.
Are we all starting to brainstorm now?
Well, I hope so. That's why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
It really goes to the building committee
Oh,
because
the
it is a
building
building,
committee,
but ultimately it will come to the selectmen for
Yeah.
consideration, and then ultimately to a town meeting. But I think the idea was just to sort of get people's attention to, hey, look, folks, we're 6 months away from this building being vacant. We ought to start thinking about what are we going to do so that we're not reacting and then dealing with a vacant building,
Yes.
which creates insurance and liability and and
I
other
see,
problems.
Well, hopefully, what I want to make sure is though that the town maintains control of that.
Oh yeah,
Well,
I don't.
I don't want to see
well, that's
any
what- yeah.
sale at
That's
all.
why I don't think you saw anybody
to a
talking
private party.
about that.
I think that's important. A park, I think, is a good idea. Like I said, I'm not in favor of the restrooms. I just don't think aesthetically in that it's a proper place for it. I just don't think it will look good. A nice park or something else. I certainly would like the Dutton House, as you know, Paul, but that's going by the boards now. I wanted to put the
Well, it
Dutton
ain't
House,
done
which is
yet.
over by Lead.
I mean, that's still
I meant
before the Board
that
of
idea.
Appeals.
I mean, I'd like to see
Yeah.
it, but the Chelmsford Housing Authority declined to be
Right.
interested in doing that because there was a proposal to move the Dutton House over there. Pat, could I ask you, I know you're up for re-election next year, Pat. Have you decided if you're going to run yet?
It's only May.
I know. Oh, I wanted to
It's been a month
surprise
since
you
the
and
last
see if you would let us know. You don't want to let us know yet?
It's way too,
Too early. Okay.
Way too
How about George? You think George Dixon, he's up
I-
again? He's up. We
I
don't
have
know.
no
we
idea.
don't know.
I wouldn't,
yeah.
and I absolutely
Hi,
wouldn't speak
George,
for
if
him.
you're watching.
Yeah.
But yeah, so George and Pat are up next year. Who's up on the school committee, Mike?
I believe it's Nick.
Nick, I
That's
see.
the
Do you
one
think
year.
he's going to
That's the
run
one
again?
too.
Again,
You don't know, yeah.
No
yeah.
idea.
I see, yeah.
And I think we heard Ed was up next year, right, Ed?
No.
Oh,
Following year
the
after
year
this?
after- yeah.
Following year after that? Okay.
And Paul, could you quickly tell us when the wires are going to be buried in Chelmsford Center? We don't know yet.
Well, the
We're trying to
problem
get
on
money.
that is we have plenty of money from National Grid. I think we have almost $4 million, but
Yeah.
Verizon's in a deficit. And that's because the revenues
Oh.
from that go from landlines.
I see. Thank you.
So there's no schedule for that.
Thank you. Well, again, I'm sorry our time has just zipped by, and thank you all so much for being here. And thank you, everybody, for watching the show. And this is my 368th one of these talk shows. I did have to change the name recently, as I explained in the beginning of the show, because we're having artists now, small business people. I love when we have the animals on the show, the adoptable animals. So it's not meant to be an egotistical thing with the name change. It's just meant to be, now we could do anything on the show. But we still have a lot of politics on the show. And thank you so much for being here, Paul Cohen, again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed Roux.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat
Thanks,
Wojtas.
Tom.
Thank you very much, Mike Rigney.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Sheila Pichette.
And Paul, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
wonderful.
you, Sheila. Thanks. And thanks our wonderful crew. They come in here every week or every other week. George and Azor and Larry, and do a great job for us. I really appreciate it, all on a volunteer basis. Thank you to our director, Pete Padula, who does a great job. Thank you to the director of Chelmsford Town Meeting, who might be retiring this year, unfortunately, Matt Scott, who does a great job. As you can see the cake there, it's our 19th anniversary show tonight. And hopefully, if all goes well, God willing, we'll do this another 19 years. Thanks for watching the show. I'm Tom Christiano. Ciao.